Hello friends, thank you for joining me again today. Nancy and I got up much earlier than we like to get up. Managed to get in the car and had a decent hour and drive all the way home in time to get some work done this afternoon. And we had a great time down in Charleston, South Carolina. And it's good to be home. So I had a bunch of, as you can imagine, a bunch of office infrastructure business busyness, as I call it, to do. Managed to start doing some painting just a little while. Hello, Moraid. Are you the first one on? Your first one on today. Well, let me move you guys a little bit so that you can see what I'm working on right here. I'm going to try to knock out this flag real quickly. Hello, Karen. As I always say, Moraid. Don't you people have jobs? Okay, wait a minute. Let me get some other brushes. So because I paint city scenes a lot, therefore, I paint a lot of American flags. If I were in Canada, I'd paint a lot of Canadian flags, you know. But I ain't in Canada. Much to my chagrin, I'm not in Canada. So I'm totally happy living in the United States. But Canada's a close second. I was born in Canada, for those of you who don't know that part of the story. So I paint a lot of American flags, and I've come up with a pretty good process, I think. Now this is a pretty small flag, so it's going. The biggest challenge with this particular flag is simply the size. Trying to let me turn down this monitor a little bit. Trying to capture the essence of the stars and stripes without getting too detailed, of course. That is a challenge. Okay, white, red, white, red. White, red, white, red. Okay. Yeah, I think that's right. All of a sudden. Yeah, no, that's right. So I can describe my process for you a little bit. As everything else, a flag needs to be painted in layers, in stages, not all at once, but in phases, layers, stages. So I start, as you see here, well, I had a sketch done already. I start by doing a dirty red, very hinting at stripes, just hinting at it, not trying to spell them out very clearly. And of course, most flags that we see outside, they're like this one, blowing in the breeze, so they're not straight, of course. So that creates all kinds of fun challenges for us. And in fact, it is fun. So I'll continue here. Let me pick up hang on while I drop my brushes all over the floor, all over the drop cloth, thankfully. Okay, pick up my red brushes. Same brushes I was using a few minutes ago to do the dirty red. I'm coming back with a considerably cleaner and brighter red. again, the essence of painting, of course, is making interesting marks. Another way to put that, the essence of painting is the art of abstraction, or the art of abstracting, not the art of rendering, forcing, pushing. Allow the image to happen by accident rather than force the image to yield to your iron will, if I may use such poetic language. Try to set up an environment in which, let me see, hello Karen, hello Uncle, Ray, Karen, Uncle. Oh, I was born in Hamilton, Ontario. My dad's from Toronto. My mom's mostly from Burlington, but during the Great Depression, she and her siblings escaped to the country to live with Uncle Will, while Dad, that is my grandpa, during the Depression, went to, I think it was Collingwood. I'm not sure about that. Anyway, he went to where they build ships, where they build Great Lakes ships. So that's what my dad did, and lived apart from his wife and children for quite a while. Worked and sent money home. Boy, I really do. I love to get those stories from my mom. They literally did. If you all hear the stories about, you know, I'd walk 10 miles to school, yeah, or whatever, in 5 feet of snow, uphill both ways. Well, that pretty much does describe my mom. No, they didn't always have to walk. But she does tell stories about going to school in a farmer's sleigh underneath buffalo blankets. Should have been, well, 1930, 31, 32, right? Wow. And all right, back to red again. So, let me talk about flags, just American flags, flags with stripes on them. Any fabric with stripes on it that is not static, that is to say it's a moving fabric. You line up your highlights across the stripes. You don't paint this way, you paint this way. That's just all I'm going to say about that right now. You don't paint with the stripes, you paint against the stripes, so to speak. All right, so here I am with, I think, my last highlight of white. And you see, can you see that I've got the brightest red there and there? Well, then the bright white is going to go in line with those red dots. I almost put one extra dot that doesn't need to be there. I still have, basically all my cousins still live in Canada. I don't get to see them very often. Saw them a couple of years ago for celebrating my mom's 90th birthday. That was great, great fun. Another spot of red right here on the tip of that. Very wrinkly flag this time. Caught it right in the middle of a good ripple. Yeah, that'll do, I think. Let me go back to, oh, before I do that, I have white paint on my brushes, so I'll paint a few tiny dots to represent stars, not 50, of course. That looks about right. And then, here's again the trick that would surprise some of you. After doing the white stars, I follow up by doing the highlights in the blue field. Okay, so that, in case you're not paying attention, that's contrary to the way an early journey painter would have done it. They would have painted the blue field first, and then painted the white stars on top of the blue field, right? Of course. So why do I do it? Why do I do stars first and blue second? I'm sorry, you regulars, you old timers, you've heard this kind of thing so many times. Now hang on. Having said that, however, I am going to come back with white, do just one or two really highlighted stars in the blue field. Then I'm done, I think. Okay, why paint white stars then blue? And the answer is because whenever possible, ever possible in painting, you want to paint in the reverse. You want to paint, instead of painting objects, you want to paint around objects. That's one way to put it. Another way to put it is whenever possible, you want to paint the up-close object first, and the far-away object on top of it. Okay, now the most common example of that is what most people call sky holes, which I typically call tree holes, because many times it is not sky that's behind the tree, but a building or something else. Anyway, the traditional sky hole, if you do them right, they're fabulous. Don't let anybody convince you that it's easy to do them right. I could see this, I always see this glimmer of excitement in the eyes of an early journey painter all the time. The first time they hear or learn about sky holes, their eyes light up, they smile and say, "Oh, that sounds cool. I'm going to do that." And then they do it, and it looks really bad. Behold, voila, sky dots. Not sky holes. Anyway, sky holes, tree holes, when done appropriately, are very charming and effective because, oh boy, I'm not sure I have the energy for this, but I'm in this deep, so I might as well. Because our brain, our mind, gets a little kick out of a momentary confusion, the momentary confusion that takes place when the paint of the faraway object is clearly on top of the up-close object. Okay, that's a very strange way to put it, but let's stick with trees and sky holes for a minute. Every human being knows. You don't have to explain it. You don't have to explain it. Every human being knows that, okay, by the way, I've got here a pure ultramarine blue and titanium white. So it's coming across as a much more purple-ish white. And yes, I call purple white is a cool blue, not a warm blue. The green blue is a warm blue. And I've done that many times. I've explained why that is the case. purple blue is blue with a little red in it. So some of you would say, if it's got red in it, then it's warmer. I'd say, yes, but it's not as warm as blue with a little green in it. The question is, which is warmer, yellow or red? And the answer is yellow, but that's too short of an answer, and I'll do it another time. Let me go back to what I was saying about our eyes enjoy, and when I say our eyes, of course, I really mean our brain, our mind, the seeing part of our brain gets a kick out of the momentary flicker of confusion that we feel, as I said, when the paint of the faraway object is clearly on top of the paint of the close-up object. And I was starting to say, and nobody needs to explain that when you see a tree in front of a sky, like I have a little bit of one right here, right? Nobody needs to tell you the sky is far away and the tree is up close. But let's just be real, let's just get it right out there, okay? Let's be real clear. The sky is far away and the tree is up close. You with me? All right? So logic, the kind of logic that controls the behavior of an early journey painter. Logic would say then, you paint the sky because it's far away, then you paint the tree on top of it because it's up close. That's logic, and almost always wrong. Now, hang on. Can you achieve a highly realistic effect by painting that way? And the answer, absolutely. Absolutely. So if you're in the first half of your art journey and your goal is learning how to paint stuff that looks like stuff, then by all means, paint the sky first and then paint the tree. And you can indeed achieve a high degree of realism by doing it. But realism is not what we're after. In the second half of our art journey, we're after beauty, to put it bluntly. We're after painting stuff that looks like paint. We're after charming, scintillating, fascinating visual stimulation. Okay, that's what we're after in mature painting. We're no longer after similitude, slavishly copying of a photograph. Now our goal is beauty. And part of that is the confusion, the momentary flutter of confusion that takes place while your brain is processing the fact that I've got a little tiny, just a little tiny bit of it right here in this tree. See those dots right there? Those are on top of the dark. The dark was done first and the blue sky was done late. And most human eyes can discern, can pick up on that. And it creates a little momentary flutter of confusion in the brain, because everybody knows the sky, the blue dots are far away and the brown stuff is up close, and yet everybody can also tell that the blue dot is closer to us than the gray, than the dark color, okay? Am I making sense? I'm talking about microns here, of course, but you can tell, your eye can actually tell that these blue dots are on top of the dark stuff. This is not rocket science. Your eye can do even the fairly casual observer. I'm not going to say that every casual observer, because I've developed a whole new range of respect for how poorly some people use their eyeballs. But be that as it may, even most people can discern that. All right, so it's an irony. It's like a visual irony. Does that make sense? The fact that sky's far away, but the sky paint is closer to us. Irony. And I don't usually use the word irony. That's a good word right there. And that irony, that momentary flicker of confusion, creates, here's where visual art, aesthetics, are not always intuitive. Very often they are very counterintuitive. Bear with me just a minute while I change my in-ear monitor. So that little momentary flicker of confusion, as I say, actually creates aesthetic pleasure in the mind of the viewer. All right, so that's why you paint blue, then white dots, then you come back and do blue around the white dots for that reason, because everybody knows the white stars are supposed to be like on the blue field. Does that make sense? Of course it does. Leave me alone. If it doesn't make sense, shut up. I don't want to hear it from you. Okay. Now, let me step across the room and see how I like that. See how I like that band of ultramarine going through the sky there. I do, pretty much. I think I can do a little bit more of it up here. Okay, so let me tell you, again, you regulars in particular, what I did this afternoon after I got all my horrible busyness work done. When I finally was able to start painting. Well, first of all, I did indeed glaze the whole canvas. Just like my normal traditional, we had talked last night about being careful not to glaze, get it too dark, but nope, I wasn't careful at all. I glazed it like normal, warm, brown, yellow, orange, warm stuff. Then wiped some off, but then I came back and painted. Let me show you, let me pick you up just for a moment and let you see that that work. I'm pretty happy with the way that's looking. So there's a pretty good close-up of the texture of that part of the painting. And that part of the painting might be all finished. And I came down to about where the shadow starts. That's as far as I did. A little bit on this building as well, that light brown stuff, right? So I'm pretty happy with it. I really did enjoy. Got a kick out of several of your comments. A couple days ago, I posted on YouTube community page. That's where I can post still images. I posted an intermediate photograph of this painting and kind of bemoaned the fact that I had to, so to speak, had to continue painting because I was liking so much the way the painting was looking, the way it was. And I said, man, maybe I should just stop and sign it. Call this my new style. And several of you responded. Jane, I think, remember in particular. And I agree with you very much, Jane, if you hear this now or later, about the thing that impresses us about Christian Hook is the crazy abstraction. That's a good description. The crazy abstract stuff that he throws down on top of it, accentuates the realism of his paintings. I agree. And but anyway, as you can see, I did not stop at that point back there. Hang on, I dragged a brush across this flag, which I'm fine with, but then I need to clean it up a little bit. In fact, let me continue cleaning up here just a little bit more. All right, I think that'll do for now. Anyway, several of you commented about it, and generally speaking, I'm happy that I have continued with my normal painting technique instead of ending the painting back where it was. I've just mixed up, not light enough. I'm trying to mix up a slightly lighter
version of that blue that I just put up there a minute ago. Why?
Because any time that you put down, especially in the realm of opaque, if you put down one color over any broad area at all, which I certainly did, all this was all the same color blue, and that becomes monotonous. So it's important to come back usually right after the fact, because you already have that color in your brushes, but not necessarily. But anyway, to next step, if you will, to mix up a slightly lighter version of that and put it on top of what you just painted. So that's what I'm doing now, slightly lighter blue. Even though theoretically one could say, well, wouldn't it be like this, you know, the sky is blue, wouldn't it be like the same color blue? And the answer is maybe, but I'm not going to do a bad painting to follow a, what's the word, a truism. That is a dumb thing, an obvious thing that's true. That's a truism. An obvious thing that's true. It is true that the sky is blue, so to speak, and it's more or less, you know, across this band, the same color blue. But I'm not going to fail to do this in order to accurately reflect that truism, right? All right, looks better already. It looks better already, just having come back and done a little bit of slightly lighter blue on top of what was already there. You can do it a third time, of course, but most of the time, the once is adequate most of the time. Here we have some sky showing through that I have not indicated yet. All right, let me sit down for a moment and she'll bring you guys down a little bit as well. So here's the bottom part of this painting. I am not going to broadcast long tonight because I'm just tired. How's that for a good excuse? Does this make it the painting better? Hang on. No, more glare. Oh, Brenda, you're sweet. I appreciate that. She says she's learned for 3 years and still blown away. The dirty 30s, yeah. Yeah. Hello, Jane. I just talked about you a minute ago. Were you here? I hope you were. I was quoting you. And Uncle 60, they had schools and walking shoes. Lucky them. Yep, Uncle 60. That is. Those are the stories. Yep. Uncle 60. It is a bell tower. It's a church steeple with bells, and the bells rang periodically while I was there. That Uncle has that same. I was wondering the same thing. There's a railing way up there, and obviously it's built for people to get up there. My guess is it's been closed off for, you know, half a century or more, except for people to go up and do inspections. But it sure did look like fun. It's like, oh man, I'd like to walk up there. No, Murray, good question. Now, what I was doing just now is not broken color. No, there is, in fact, here, let me raise you up for a minute again. I'll just pick you up. there is in fact broken color in the sky, but it's left its remnants left over from my underpaintings. And I will indeed come back later and do more underpainting in the sky. But that's not what I was doing just then. I would call what I was doing then was consonant color. That is real color, local color. All right. I do not have the energy. I can just feel it. So I don't want to, I'm a little bit worried about making big decisions. Yeah, I think one of the things that needs to happen for the painting to work, forgive me, I'm going to raise you back up again so you can see more of it. So I want to talk about the whole painting. You're getting a terrible glare, I know that. So just try to ignore that big glare there. In order for this, the focal point, by the way, so there's no question, is up there, and that's done. That's working very well. But this V of light that I described the last two nights, last night anyway, and the night before a little bit, I think, needs to be pushed. You know, it's not the trans shape. That is a shape that goes transverses, that goes across all these images, is not as strong as it ought to be. And I'm going to fix that by mostly by making the sky lighter here, by making this part of the chimney slightly lighter, but I don't know how much lighter till I get this done, and so on. But that's a big project. And frankly, I just don't feel up to tackling it with my brain in its halfway fuzzy state. I'm not exhausted, but I'm pretty good and tired. So I'm going to just content myself with doing something a little bit safer, which is start by working on these people again. So, and this is a good example, I think, of what I mean when I talk about painting, doing blobbing in a painting rather than blocking in. Okay, my beef with, if you block in, you lock in. And so instead of doing that, I advocate blobbing in your paintings, which basically the difference is when you blob, you keep all your major decisions, you delay them as long as possible. You postpone those major decisions. So that the effect is just what you just saw right there. That is what? That's at least the fifth time, probably sixth or seventh time that I've rendered these figures, right? So I let the painting have a life of its own. So, well, that doesn't communicate what I'm trying to say. And it's really hard to describe because it's so intuitive, but I'm going to try anyway. So this man has a briefcase. This is this street that I was on last night, the last two nights in Charleston. Turns out it was a very professional district, part of town. Lots of lawyers, things like that. In fact, this sign right up here, whoops, this sign right up here is I was standing outside a lawyer's office. Anyway, so it feels appropriate to me to have a man, business, two people in business garb walking on the street. All right, back to, I'm trying to describe my drawing process. Much of the time,
I can't say all of the time, but much of the time when I'm focused on rendering, that means, in my language, that means drawing accurately drawing, copying. When I am rendering the stuff in the painting, rather than grab a small brush and stick out my tongue, do what I call tongue painting, you know, and hunker down like that. I just slap stuff down in a fairly loose and abstract. Whoops, I used the word loose. Never mind. Whoa. I repent. I withdraw that. No, slap the paint down with energetic strokes. I don't want to use the word loose. And I try to sneak up on my subject matter and allow it to appear little by little, stage by stage, step by step, degree by degree, instead of forcing it to come into a realistic image all at once, right? So that's what I'm doing here. This is maybe the 6th or 7th time I've taken a whack at this couple on the sidewalk, and I'm not done yet. This will not be the last time. All I want to do with each phase, with each layer, is just get one step, whatever one step means. It's, again, a very abstract term, hard to define exactly what does one step mean. I don't know. But I just want to get one step closer to realism, to of a believable image. And at the same time that I'm doing that, as you can see, well, I think you can see, I'm still, again, trying to use energetic marks. Whoops. that was a color mix. Whoops. Like, whoops, that was too much oxide red. Dawns on me, this woman's shoulder should be a little bit further. So, and part of me understands that, again, those of you in early journey, first half of life, in a way, what I'm doing should kind of drive you crazy. If you're an early painter and watching me, in a way, drives you crazy, because you say, why don't you just, forgive my language, why don't you just draw the damn thing? Okay, you got it? Well, now you know why. Because when you in fact force yourself, pick up a small brush, stick out your tongue, grab it in this manner, and just render the dang thing. Just do it. Just get done with it already. You know, when you do that, you can in fact successfully execute the rendering. You can get a reasonable facsimile. The problem is it's devoid of energy. It's not exciting. It's just there. You can achieve believability and realism, but what you're not going to get is anything transcendent. I love to use that word. You're not going to put anything down that rocks people on their heels. You're going to get, there's a woman, there's a woman in a red dress, Whereas if you paint, and this is hard and there's no guarantee, if it looks like I'm painting sort of just off the edge of control, then then way to go, you're paying attention, that is correct. If it looks to you like I'm sort of, again, painting right on the edge, or either just past the edge of control, then congratulate yourself. That is exactly what is happening. What color? The tie. So why don't I just do it? The answer is because if I do it, it'll look like I just did it. Whereas if I paint with energetic, crazy, abstract marks. I open the door at least. There's no guarantee that I'm going to do something, as I said a minute ago, transcendent, but I have a possibility of doing that. And for me, it's worth the risk. Worth the risk of painting out of control, which might then make a mess and take me a little bit longer. I taught an anatomy class just last Thursday evening, right before Nancy and I went down at Jerry's Artorama. And it was what I teach most of the time when I'm teaching anatomy. It's not a what you might call a full-on anatomy course. It's a anatomy painting for landscape painters or scenic painters and so forth. It's this kind of stuff. And I very much enjoy teaching that subject. By the way, I can't wait to get back to my abandoned series. It's been several months now since I did one of my Anatomy Masters videos. I'm assuming that most of you or all of you have seen those. That is one of the things I do. I would almost consider myself a hobby figurative painter. It's not my job, it's a hobby. And I enjoy, and in fact, even teaching it is actually a hobby. So that's why I'm looking forward to coming back and working more on that. Just a minute ago, by the way, this woman, without my permission, she just turned her head. She's looking that way now. I did not plan that. I'm just painting messy, and all of a sudden, without my permission, my brush left a mark. I don't even remember which mark it was. And all of a sudden I said to myself, oh my goodness, just can you see it? I think you can. She's looking like in 3/4 view to our right. Complete accident, complete mistake, accident, you know what I mean? No, I didn't do it on purpose. It just emerged. It happened. And I think that's a good way to paint. Do a little bit of a white sleeve on this man. I'm mixing up a slightly lighter gray. For this man's shirt. That might be enough. All right, before I leave, I'll do a little bit more on this. I'm reading your chats now. Moraid asks, are my black pencils wax base? Yes, exactly. And you used the right language. Oil base, but wax base is more accurate. You're exactly correct. And for some reason, they play really well with both water media and oil-based media. Again, I think somebody had told you the other night. They're made by Jerry's Artorama. Oops, hang on. They're Jerry's Artorama. Jumbo Jet Black. And somebody else says the two people are great so far and you're making complete sense. Good, thank you, Chrissy. Oh, good to have you here, Chrissy. Yes, Hansa Yellow and Permanent Rose make a beautiful red. Good call. Yes, indeed. That's not what I was using right here, but that is a good way to achieve a very nice, intense red. I'm thinking this woman has a strap over her shoulder, and then a bag here, which then coincidentally puts a bag in each of their right hands. He has a briefcase and she has a satchel. And that's actually a good thing, because I don't know if you know this or not, this is the kind of thing that artists should pay attention to. When people are walking together down a street, given most of the time, they tend to echo each other. Without realizing it, they begin to walk in step a little bit and do things like hold a bag on the same side and so forth. So, in answer to somebody who might say, well, isn't that kind of redundant? Shouldn't you put one bag on the other side? Maybe, but all right, now the last thing I'm going to go, wait, I'm going to... Good for you, Uncle. Tried the pencils. Oh, Mairead, you're from Western Canada too. Well, did you see Redina, who was on last night? Redina is from, I almost remember the name of the town. Anyway, right on the, near Vancouver, or on Vancouver Island, I believe. Right on the water. Beautiful little town. Okay, so I think this will probably be the last thing I'll do tonight. Again, I don't want to push it. I do think I've got a good painting going here, and I don't want to ruin it by overdoing it. I have to go downstairs and practice anyway. That's too bright. So the most definition that I do typically on my figures is negative painting or reverse painting them. So in other words, in this regard, I am practicing what I preach. The hardest edges often on the figures are painted last. Are the outside edges, outline, so to speak. But all of those terms, hard edge, I hope, really need to be kept in quotation marks, because I cannot. This couple will work almost in reverse relationship to their sharpness. In other words, the fuzzier they are, the better they will work. Plus, fuzzy figures convey movement. And of course, so these people are not standing still. They're walking down the street. So a lot of fuzziness is certainly advantageous. In fact, okay, here we'll end here, I believe. And it's very possible I will touch these guys up again tomorrow. But this is a good example of a trick. Oh, his arm's too low. Well, we'll fix that tomorrow. We could have fixed part of it today. Even though I've tried to keep it sort of loose, I just overdrew. That's overdrawn. Not like my checking account. That's not what I mean. It's drawn too much. Okay? Not a big problem. This is what I'm doing right now is pretty standard stuff. Just scratch away. Just scratch the heck out of it. If you haven't seen, and Mairead, you're new here, and maybe Chrissy, you're new too, I don't know. About 3 weeks ago, I did a teaching, and I hope I can go back and edit the whole thing. But anyway, it's called A Lesson in Real Painting. There, that's better. Can you guys see that that's better all of a sudden? And as you saw, I didn't scratch carefully. Well, I did a few things right at the very end, I did. But for the most part, it was just completely random strokes, pushing pretty hard, and it looks better. It looks way better. Now, again, it's very possible I will touch them up a little again tomorrow a little bit. But it's possible I won't too. So anyway, but some of you newcomers, I did probably my most intense didactic attempt to teach real painting about 3 weeks ago. You can just do a search for it. It's called A Lesson in Real Painting, where I talk about this stuff quite a bit. And I actually do a demonstration like this where I put an image down and then wipe it off. And the amazing thing is how long your eye continues to see it. All right. Time for me to say goodnight to you all. I do have to go downstairs and practice my trumpet. You newcomers, yeah, that's part of my life. Plus, I have 4 grandchildren we have 4 grandchildren living with us, and their parents. So 6 people upstairs. It's wonderful. It's a circus. It's wonderful. Anyway, they love for me to practice my trumpet because that means I watch TV when I practice trumpet. YouTube. So they love for me to practice because they get to watch TV with me. All right. I'm off. I'm off my rocker. I'm off all kinds of things. Thanks for watching. I expect to paint. Well, I don't know. No. Hang on. If I paint tomorrow, I'll bring you in. But I've got an awful lot of infrastructure carpentry to do actually this week because I have 2 big events coming up this weekend, and I have to have equipment that's fully functional. All right. Thanks, guys. Love you. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.